Hello and welcome to Lipedema Stress Reduction. This is episode 3, where we're looking at the science of breath work. So I'm Kathleen Helen Lisson. I'm a lymphedema therapist, a yoga teacher, co-author of the Standard of Care for Lipedema in the United States, and the author of several books, including the Lipedema Treatment Guide. And this is going to be a class that's going to focus on the science behind breath work, and then we'll practice a little bit of breath work. So first, I'd like to invite you to join me before we begin the class in a mindful moment. So I'll invite you to take a position which is relaxing yet alert. Your eyes can be open or closed. And I'll invite you to take a deeper inhale and a longer exhale. And bring to mind now why you pressed play on this video. What are you looking to learn about breath work and the science behind breath work? What do you already know? And what questions might you have? And since we're already a couple of episodes in on this series, have you tried some of the breathwork practices and the other videos? Have you tried including them in your daily self-care? And how has that been going for you? So we'll end this mindful moment with another deeper inhale and a longer exhale. And we'll move into our neck and shoulder yoga practice where we're pairing movement with breathing. So I'll invite you to inhale as you look up and exhale as you look down. Inhale as you look up, exhale and look down. Inhale and look up, and exhale and look down. Return your head to a neutral position and then inhale as you look right. Exhale and look towards the front. Inhale as you look left. And exhale as you come back to the center. Inhale and look right. Exhale to the center. Inhale and look left. Exhale and look to the center. Inhale and look right. Exhale to the center. Inhale and look left. And exhale as we come to the center. Now we'll change the movement up a little. We'll inhale as our head is going towards our shoulder. And then exhale as we come up to the top. Inhale to the left shoulder. Exhale as we come to the top. Inhale to the right shoulder. Exhale to the top. Inhale to the left shoulder. Exhale, coming to the top. One more inhale each side. Exhale as we come to the top. Inhale. And exhale, coming back up to the center. Inhale, the shoulders up and back. Exhale, the shoulders down and forward. Inhaling and exhaling in our shoulder roll. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhale and exhale. Last inhales, we come up and back. And last exhales, we come down and forward, and then reverse the motion. Inhale, back into the top. Exhale, forward and down. Inhaling and exhaling. And then on the last inhale, lift the shoulders up, up, up so high. And then exhale with a sigh. Let those shoulders come down. And now we can let go of that practice, that movement, and feel into our bodies. How does it feel after this short movement and breathwork practice? And now I'll invite you to come into that respectful yet alert position, and we'll move into our short guided meditation. So I'll invite you to breathe normally. Your eyes can be open or closed. And I'll invite you to consider, what have you missed out on because of the pain of lipedema? And if lipedema pain was no longer a part of your life, what would you do differently? What would a life with less chronic stress mean for you? How would it feel if you had less chronic stress in your life? And how will you know that adding stress reduction activities has been a success for you? What are some signs that you would have less stress in your life? And I'll have us take one more longer inhale and one more gentle exhale. And we'll move into some breath work. But before we do breath work, I'd like to remind us of the general contraindications. If you have anxiety, if you have breathing problems, if you have cardiovascular or blood pressure issues that you think would affect your ability to participate in a breathwork practice, it's a good thing to talk to your primary care physician about whether you should add breath work to your self-care before you start. And even if you usually have a great time with breath work, if today you feel anxiety, lightheadedness or dizziness, a rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath, or any other symptoms that you feel are caused by the breath work or a response, negative response to breath work, please stop doing the breath work. You can always return to it at a later time. And before we start to talk about breath work, let's talk about a little bit more detail of this concept of prana. So this concept of prana is often used replaced by the word breathing, but it's not just breathing. Prana is subtle energy. It's more of an Eastern concept. We can also see the word chi or the word ki, as in Reiki. It's subtle energy. It's a word to describe subtle energy in the body, which can be moved around by breath work, um, but it can also have other ways of manifesting in the body. So because we, as yogis, think of prana as subtle energy and breath work as a way to work with prana, that's where we might come up with concepts like breath work can change the mind. So doing slow breathing can change the way that the mind works in some cases. Definitely, if my mind is in a dozen different places, I feel really stressed out. And then I take the time to do mindfulness and do a breathwork practice as part of my self-care. I can feel after that practice that the fluctuations of my mind, it's hopping around. We call it monkey mind. Just it's being distracted is reduced as a result of breath work, as a result of mindfulness. So in that way, breath work can actually change the way that we experience our minds. And another great question is, can yoga change your future? Doing the practices of yoga. And I would say more than just making shapes on a mat, but really looking at the philosophy of yoga, which includes yama, niyama, pranayama, asanas, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Can practicing yoga change your future? Can having the benefits that come with practice of yoga make a better future for you? Maybe you make better choices. Maybe your symptoms might be reduced so that you can participate in more activities. So in that way, just as the same as taking up any other positive habit can change our lives, maybe yoga can change our future. And that third question, have you felt differently about a situation after yoga practice? And that's how I will sometimes use either a short session of asana or making the shapes on the mat, doing the physical movement part of yoga, or the breath work, the pranayama part of yoga, or the mindfulness part of yoga helps me to feel differently about a situation after I have practiced yoga as a form of self-care for a while. I can come back to a difficult situation. I can come back to a problem and maybe have a different perspective on it. And I think in that way, that may be a potential reason that yoga can change your future, because doing these self-care stress reduction practices can help you feel differently about the situations that you're in or the problems that you have to solve in your daily life. And you may make better choices, which can lead to a better future. So the next topic I want to think about is maybe our breath is our most super powerful friend, because the breath, as we talked about recently, is something that we can change. We can change the length of our breathing. We can change the style of our breathing. And then our mind and our body and our hormones and our nervous system is exposed to that change in breathing, so it will make changes in the way our body runs. So let's look at some research on this. This is way back from 2006. And the authors state that pranayamic breathing, defined as a manipulation of breath movement, has been shown to contribute a physiologic response characterized by decreased oxygen consumption, decreased heart rate, decreased blood pressure, increased theta wave amplitude in the EEG recordings, increased parasympathetic activity, more alertness, and a feeling of reinvigoration. So that is some science behind that. Manipulating the breath can actually have effects on the body, and decreasing heart rate, blood pressure, stopping that hyperventilation of having either too much oxygen or too much carbon dioxide in the body, increasing the theta waves, the brain waves, and that parasympathetic activity, that rest and digest activity. And I definitely feel, if I feel scattered before breath work, I can feel more alert and more reinvigorated after a breathwork practice. So let's look at these theta waves. So researchers say that the theta power serves as a biomarker of meditative state itself, and it's associated with brain changes. So that theta wave that we see in breath work is associated with brain changes, and it's showing that the brain is in a meditative state. So let's look at one of my favorite types of breath work. Once you do breath work with me a lot, you'll see this. But it's this 0 0.1 hertz breath work, this breathing frequency, which is equal to 6 breaths a minute, or that 5-second inhale, 5-second exhale, or a 4-second inhale, 6-second exhale. It's this frequency of 6 breaths a minute is 0 0.1 hertz of breathing. So what's so special about 0 0.1 hertz? And what's so special is that the changing of our breathing pattern can change our autonomic nervous system activity. So slow breathing can reduce secretion of the adrenal hormones, the adrenal medulla norepinephrine, and it reduces that sympathetic nerve excitement, that fight or flight sympathetic nervous system excitement. So norepinephrine is known as noradrenaline or adrenaline. It's used in this fight or flight response of our sympathetic nervous system. And stressful situations can trigger that release of norepinephrine. So it's useful to use slow breathing to help reduce the secretion of this hormone. So if we're feeling very out of control, this slow breathing can help our body to more slowly secrete that hormone so we don't just get blasted with noradrenaline. So let's go ahead and try some 5-5 breathing. So I'll invite you to come into that relaxed yet alert position. Your eyes can be open or closed. And we'll inhale for a count of 5 and exhale for a count of 5. We'll repeat for 5 minutes and I will cue us. So that'll be about 30 breaths total. And I'll start us by exhaling fully. And then inhale and exhale. Inhale Exhale. Inhale. 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 We're about halfway done. Exhale. Inhale. 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 Exhale. Last inhale and last exhale. So I'll invite you to let go of that practice. You can open your eyes if they were closed. And take a moment now as you're breathing in a natural way to feel into your body, to feel into the state of your mind and the state of your emotions. How did that simple 5 minutes of breath work affect your nervous system, affect your mind? Kind of a nice way to practice um, what we've just read about happening in literature and kind of practice my theories of the questions that I was asking earlier. Okay, so now we'll move into learning more about what happens when we breathe. So this is kind of some big science here, anatomy, physiology. There's something called a breathing central pattern generator. And this is a part of our body that transmits this rhythmic patterned activity to skeletal muscle, which will adjust each breath that we take based on what the body needs from that breath to do. So when we're breathing, we are moving oxygen and moving carbon dioxide in and out of our body. So this breathing pattern generator is looking in and seeing the needs of the cells in our body and then figuring out how the skeletal muscle that is helping us breathe, so the diaphragm and the other muscle, how is going to contract to get us enough oxygen and exhale out to get out enough carbon dioxide. So it's ensure that adequate oxygen supply and removing that carbon dioxide in the face of changing metabolic demand. So whether we're running away from the tiger, whether we're relaxing, and environmental conditions. So this is kind of why after you exercise really intensely, you'll huff and puff. That's that breathing central pattern generator talking to that skeletal muscle of your lungs and saying, we've got to get this carbon dioxide out of the body. We have been using up energy and with our activities, and now we have to do some deeper breathing. It's also going to protect the airway patency. It's going to protect the lung health, and it's going to participate in and coordinate with other behaviors. And this is what is so interesting about the body. So almost every behavior or state and a vast array of endogenous neurochemicals, such as amino acids, biogenic amines, large number of the neuropeptides, they regulate or they affect our breathing. Isn't this fantastic and so interesting that so many behavior or state and neurochemicals are all trying to control, regulate, affect the breathing, because not only is the breathing used to get oxygen and carbon dioxide out, but it's also a way that the body can communicate with other systems. Breathing rhythms are detected throughout the nervous system, including where they have no apparent role in ventilation and actually getting that oxygen and carbon dioxide out. For example, there's a respiratory modulation of the pupil that's based on our breathing rhythm. And our fear response is based on our breathing rhythm. And we kind of know that because something that we tell a child or someone who's really concerned about something, if someone comes up and they're all in a jumble and they're trying to tell us something, what do we say? We say, like, slow down and take a deep breath. Take that breath in, take that breath out, because their breathing rhythm is detected by their nervous system, and that will modulate their fear response. So another reason why we would practice breath work, kind of what I was saying just a minute ago. The breathing rhythm can be used by the brain for the brain's signal processing needs. So the brain wants to send signals to the body, and it will also use the breath rate to send a signal to other systems in the body. So the brain is using the breath to send these signals, but volitional, our own, where we think with our mind, I want to slow breathing, volitional, voluntary changes in breathing rhythm can be utilized to alter signal processing in one's own brain. So we can send a message with our slow breathing to our brain that, oh, if we're breathing slow, everything must be fine. So breathing practice, so that short-term or extended repeated changes in breathing pattern can profoundly and usually positively modulate our emotion and modulate our cognition. So not only is this slow, this deep breathing, this gentle breathing, this pranayama, is it helping our lymphatic system to physically move with the different pressures in the abdomen and the thoracic. We're moving our lymphatic fluid, but we're also helping to modulate our emotion and our cognition. And that's why it's so important. There's so many different types of breath work out there, but while we're practicing breath work, we need to remember some foundational parts of yoga, the yamas of ahimsa and asteya. So ahimsa is non-violence, and asteya means not stealing. So these are part of yogic philosophy that the person who practices yoga sincerely will try to become more nonviolent and become more grounded in truthfulness, because grounded in truthfulness, grounded in nonviolence is going to help to lower the fluctuations of the mind. It's going to help to lower stress if we're not focused on violence and looking at being violent to someone else. Just thinking about it gets my heart beating, and that will have a negative effect on my nervous system and my health. And also stealing from people, taking what is not ours, what is not freely offered, that will also have that sympathetic fight or flight nervous system response in us. If you've ever tried to like steal something from somebody, you can feel your blood pressure increase and you start sweating. You can feel that sympathetic nervous system response. So nonviolence doesn't just mean not hitting someone else over the head. It also means having a right relationship with ourselves and not self-sacrificing. So that means with respect to breath work, that we want to do breath work when it's positive, has a positive effect for us. And if some breath work is too intense for us, we're not just going to try to power through and do it anyways. We're only going to do what is nourishing and nurturing to our own bodies. And also, asteya, non-stealing, is important for not looking outward for satisfaction, not trying to make other people satisfy us, looking to ourselves, and at the same time, not stealing from ourselves. So if we are supposed to, and we know it's so good to practice breath work, but we keep on forgetting to do it. We keep on letting other things come ahead of our own self-care and self-management, and that's going to have a negative impact on our lipedema symptoms. We're actually stealing some very good medicine from ourselves. We're stealing that opportunity to help ourselves. So, and a part of nonviolence is making sure that the breath work is comfortable and it's actually good for our body. So my recommendation would be only perform pranayama, this breath work, if each and every aspect of the breath feels comfortable. It's not something that you need to let your fight or flight nervous system go into overdrive because you're trying to do some more of these very active types of breathing. I would recommend the pranayama that's very nurturing and very gentle instead. So the first thing that we can look at is, are our exhales actually relaxing? So we can try to practice and see if this works for us by making a tight fist when we inhale, and then relax the hand and allow it to open when we exhale. So I'll invite you to join me in the next inhale, make a tight fist. And then relax the hand and allow it to open when you exhale. And let's just try for a few breaths. We're observing how it feels to relax your hand as we exhale. And in that same way, we want to bring that same feeling of slow relaxation to your exhale. So it doesn't have to be like a really active exhale out when you're doing gentle breathing. Think of relaxing while breathing. So there's some more intense breath work like Kapalbhati and Bhastrika that do have a very pronounced exhale that's very fast. But as we start to experience breath work as a beginner, let's keep to the slow and gentle breath work until, again, like we learned recently, after doing more intense breath work, if we don't feel incredibly hungry, if we don't feel incredibly angry, anxious at other people, or want to eat up the whole house, if we don't have a sympathetic response from it after we finish the breath work, then it's a good breath work for us. But if we feel more anxious, if we feel more angry towards other people after breath work, that's our body giving us a sign that we're not ready for that kind of intense breath work. All right, so we learned some of the science behind breath work. We practiced that gentle 5-5 breathing again. Now as we come to almost to the close of today's session, we'll take another mindful moment. I'll invite you to get to a position that's alert yet relaxed. Your eyes can be open or closed. We'll start by taking a deeper inhale and a longer exhale. So we looked at a lot of science today, that breathing pattern generator, thinking about the different hormones, the norepinephrine that happens. We looked at a little bit of yoga philosophy. We explored a little bit of what prana was, some of the yamas of ahimsa and asteya. What was your favorite thing that you learned today? And what is something that you're curious about that you want to learn more about? How did you feel after that 5 minutes of breath work? And have you learned or experienced anything in this episode that makes you more excited or more committed to adding breath work to your stress reduction practices? We'll end this mindful moment with a deeper inhale and a slower exhale. You can open your eyes, and here are some of the resources if you want to learn more about the science behind breathwork, some of the things that we talked about today. And thank you very much for joining me on this episode. We're learning stress reduction practices for lipedema. Have a good day.